Now going to number 3, my third favorite fantasy rookie wide receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC. He went to Detroit in the top of the 4th round, so 112th overall. I actually thought this was a pretty solid player. I think he went a little bit later in this draft due to the depth and the number of good receivers in this draft. With that being said, we're going to take a look at the Lions offense, which actually could probably not be all that good this year, but we'll take a look. So their offensive line last year ranked 16 according to PFF at the end of last season, and they had a 55% team pass block win rate according to ESPN, which was 20th among 32 teams. So obviously it wasn't great. A car just honked. Which obviously wasn't great, but I do think they did a really good job of upgrading their offensive line this year. They drafted Penei Sewell in the 7th overall selection of the draft, which I thought was a great value for a player who could have even gone as early as number 4 to the Falcons. So as a whole, I think their offensive line is very solid. And obviously, if you look at their offense, they have a quarterback Jared Goff, who the writing's still on the wall for him. We're not really sure what he's going to do. They have running back DeAndre Swift, who I think they could probably run the offense through. According to the depth chart on our lads, they don't have St. Brown as the starting wide receiver, but I do think he will be able to win that job come regular season. So my wide receiver 2 for this team is Brashad Perriman, and my wide receiver 3 is Tyrell Williams, but we'll see about Williams. I'm not really sure about him yet. And of course, the tight end, everyone knows him, TJ Hawkinson. The main concern I have for this team, and I think we talked about it a little bit in the Hawkinson video that we did, is that the offense is probably going to be pretty inconsistent. I don't see this being a great fantasy team. Their defense, we're not really sure about yet. I think it's probably going to be pretty underwhelming, I'll say. So they could be trailing in a lot of games, which could actually help Amman-Ra St. Brown in this offense. Get a little bit more targets, a little bit more production, but as a whole, I think this team's going to be really bad. I don't see their offense being any more than a bottom 5 unit in the league, so that could really hurt St. Brown's production. But I do have him as my wide receiver 3 because it's really hard to not have a player who is going to potentially be the wide receiver 1 for their team. Not on the radar for fantasy production. So coming in at number 4, I have Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU. He went to Carolina in the bottom of the 2nd round, 59th overall selection. I think he's a really solid outside guy. I think he helps in the red zone. I think he could have a few touchdowns this season, which could be really good for his fantasy production. In terms of the team around him, Carolina had the 17th ranked offensive line according to PFF. They had a 53% team pass block win rate, which was 23rd according to ESPN. So not great. The reason why I include the pass block win rate and the offensive line rank in general is because some teams like Carolina have a better run blocking team or offensive line than a pass blocking. So I like to add both to show that maybe they're a little bit lackluster in the pass blocking department. But I think they did a pretty solid job of adding some pieces that could help contribute right away. They added Deontay Brown in the 6th round of the draft. They added Brady Christensen in the 3rd round of the draft. That was a guard and a tackle, respectively. So, and in general, I think they do have some decent role players here. No one that really stands out. That's a great player. But I think if everyone does their job and plays solidly along the offensive line, I think they could probably have about middle of the road, a little bit higher. Of a unit this year. They also have a swing tackle and a swing guard in Cameron Irving and John Miller. As far as the rest of the offense goes, they have newly acquired Sam Darnold from the Jets. They have Christian McCaffrey, who had a few injuries last season that derailed his year, but I do think he can come back and be very solid. You even saw last year in the games that he did play, he put up, I think, minimum 24 fantasy points in the 2 or 3 contests that he did participate in. So obviously he's a monster, and you can always expect something from CMC. I do think Marshall, by the time the season starts, will be the wide receiver 3, and I believe that our lads has him ranked there right now. So obviously the wide receiver 1 on this team is DJ Moore. Wide receiver 2 is Robbie Anderson. Maybe you see them reversed. That's how I have it for right now. And the tight end I have starting is is Dan Arnold, but of course, there could be a ton of guys here like Ian Thomas also, or Tommy Tremble, who they drafted in the 3rd round of this year's draft. Now on to main concerns for Terrace Marshall. I do think he's going to be the wide receiver 3/4 for this team. They did sign David Moore out of Seattle, who was a very solid role player for that team. He always came in kind of clutch and had a few touchdowns in the seasons that he played with Seattle. So I think that could maybe take away from Marshall's production a little bit. But as we saw last year from Curtis Samuel actually had some fantasy relevance, and he at points was a wide receiver 3/2 for fantasy teams. So I do believe that Terrace Marshall can come in and be like a Curtis Samuel. They're not really similar in the type of player that they are, but in terms of production and getting targets and getting red zone production, I do think Marshall can come in and make some fantasy relevance here, and that's why I have him as my wide receiver 4.
Never ever find the right words, and there's no way this is real life. There's no telling you're the right girl, so I can only say that it feels right.